Okay, I'm back. I'm going to try to do this in a short period of time. We left off, you should have in your mind, Microsoft builds operating systems. Others make hardware, buy the operating systems from Microsoft, and install them. That's Microsoft's business model. Let's take a look at operating systems. This I'm going to cover, at least the era that I'm covering. What we have here, we go from Windows CE up to where we left off with PDAs. And then in 2000, Microsoft decided to give a name to the platform, and they called it Pocket PC. They did not go with Wallet PC. And then we had a Pocket PC 2002. Then there was a phone version of that, or a phone edition. We had Windows Mobile 2003, a name change. So there's name change number 2. Could call it name change number 3 if you wanted to. This was the first edition to really be designed for phones or mobile devices. It was a second edition of that, moving to Windows CE 4.0 underneath. We moved from 3 to 4. Then we went to Windows Mobile 5, Windows CE 5 underneath, Windows Mobile 6. This occurred in the year 2007. What is significant about this is Microsoft's market share has been rising steadily. And over the last couple of years, they've had tremendous growth, and they have reached a point that globally they have 12% market share, which puts them at number 2 in the market, with Symbian OS being number 1. That's the operating system that Nokia offers. There has been no move by Nokia to use Windows Mobile at this point. They're sticking to trying to save Symbian. And then we went through several iterations of 6, all the way up to the final releases of 6.5.5, which puts us at 2009. So that's Windows Mobile. Microsoft was developing Windows Mobile 7. They ditched the name again and went with Windows Phone. So they kept 7 because that was the next version up from what they were making. It still had Windows CE under it, so it still had a Windows platform under it, so 7 fits. What we had was a new UI, and then there were several things that happened in that era. So we're just going to kind of come back, and I'm going to take a look at where I left off. I left off with this IPAC. Remember, Hewlett-Packard purchased IPAC? There was this sleeve that was available not just for this model IPAC, but for many. The sleeve allowed the addition of PCMCIA cards, which allowed you to add things like LAN cards, dial-up networking cards, or modems, if you will, so that you could connect to, say, 57K modem and dial into your location of work to make connectivity. There were some cards that were offered. There were compact flash cards and PCMCIA cards that provided cellular connectivity. This particular card had GSM and GPRS capability. The platform, Windows CE underneath, allowed for somewhat easy adaptation to bring in things like these adapters, or to make connectivity to PCMCIA cards. So this was the first PDA cellular combined from the PDA period of the golden age. Mitsubishi Electric and IBM released in 1995, the personal communicator, if you remember. We talked about that in the first video. That was really the first PDA cellular connectable device. I just want to show you another device. This is an IPAC from Hewlett-Packard. Very nice looking device. This device caught my eye a number of times. Just a little expensive, and where I was adding contracts, and I was kind of hung up on HTC. HTC made this device, actually. HTC made devices for many of the Pocket PC people. So kind of an interesting history there. Microsoft having a hard time getting Nokia to come on board in this 6 era. But check this out. Palm Trio, the maker of the Palm Pilot, the de facto standard of PDAs early in the golden age of PDAs, made a Windows Mobile device. Well, you kind of had to, I think. I don't know how difficult it was for them to add all the cellular connectivity to their devices, that maybe Windows CE was just an easier platform for them to do it. Go ahead and jump onto the Windows Mobile bandwagon because that stuff's in there. So this device came out. This device actually came into this house. My wife had it. We're looking for it. We don't know what happened to it. She didn't quite keep up with stuff. There was a time period when I would try to acquire the devices, she would be like, oh no, it's got stuff on it and I might need it. I said, well, we've moved everything over, but if I have a problem with it, it's still got stuff on it. And now I don't know where the device is. My device at the year 2009, when this came out, I was on HTC devices. This was my second Tilt. I was buying these things on contract. So you kind of get, wrapped in, and I went ahead and got it. I wasn't going to wait because I didn't know how long we were going to wait for what ultimately became Windows Phone 7. So I just I'm like, okay, I'm happy with what I got. It's doing everything I need. I really like this device. My contract's up. I could have kept using my device, but I like new stuff. So I got the Tilt 2. Ultimately, Microsoft decided not to do Windows Mobile 7. They changed the name to Windows Phone 7, as I mentioned at the start of this. Still had Windows CE underneath. Now, this is a sweet device. Dell made sweet devices. This is a slider phone. Unlike the Tilt sliding out at the side and coming up, this device, the keyboard dropped down, as you see. Now, this is a Windows Phone 7 device. Dell made some nice stuff. You cannot say that these were not nice devices. I didn't have one. If you got one and you're throwing it away, send it. I'll take it. Any of the slider phones. I never owned one. I held them in my hand in the AT&T store, but that's about it. I didn't know anybody that had this device, because one of the problems now, we're at the time period that market share has dropped from a dominant position, number one in the U.S. market and number two in the global market. It dropped from that position to now, they're hunting and searching, pecking for users. I didn't know anybody that had this particular device. There's still a lot of device makers making devices for Windows phones, but never saw this device. First, before I go to the next slide, Microsoft has been courting Nokia for a long time to get them to bring their devices over. Nokia is like, we're going to save Symbian, and they just were continuing to lose market share. And then this happens. Let's get a better look at this. You don't need me in the picture right at the moment. What you see here, first of all, you should note, obviously different colors, but vibrant colors. The reds, the yellow, yellow was, you saw a yellow phone, you knew it was a Nokia, but quite honestly, you saw a blue or a red phone, because most of the devices back then were white and black. And it was like most of the Androids were black, except for Samsung was white, and Apple devices were white. For me, I did not get a 510, but first let's talk about this. 2012, these devices hit, the first Nokia devices. Obviously, Microsoft won over Nokia probably around that transition time from 6 to 7, because it takes a little while to develop a device and test it and release it. So I'm guessing that right there in 2000, Microsoft struck some deals. Ultimately, in 2013, leads to the purchase of Nokia. What great devices these were. Now, I like the reds, and I have the only black ones of the Lumia line. I'll say the only, I guess it's a 50-50. My 1520 and my 920 are red. My 1020 is black, and my 640 that I picked up for $19 from Best Buy, brand new, still sealed, it's black. But the way that it's designed, that back can come off and another color back can go on, and it's looks like it's designed for it. The 1520, 920, and 1020 are more of a unibody design, and thus they're not more of, they are a unibody design, and there's no changing the color easily, we should say, and certainly no changing the color of the whole thing. You could put a cover on it and change it partially. So Nokia's on board. Well, now we're going to see what happens. But Nokia is now, by 2012, their market share is just really dwindling. So this was around Windows Phone 7.1. I don't remember. It was a 7.5. Nokia released some really sweet devices for it. End of an era. Windows Phone 7.8. What do I mean by that? There's several things I mean by that. I can tell you, because you can easily look it up, that's the last version that will use Windows CE. I'll talk about what happens next. I included Windows Phone 7 in this because it is Windows Mobile, just a different UI on it. Heck, you can skin the Windows Mobile devices. If somebody wanted to, they could skin and create a similar UI interface if they had wanted. First of all, that's happened. No more CE. Second, we've got this deal with Nokia done. Microsoft is still building OSs and having others put it on hardware, but now Microsoft wants to be involved in the design of the hardware that's used to make Windows devices. As I remember reading, they were talking about what they would build, others could duplicate, and thus they could get the experience of hardware, OS, drivers, etc. marriage like what you get with iOS, and have thus fewer issues. That was the goal. So Microsoft is now getting a little closer to the hardware than they were. They were way out here, and then they've come in a little bit, or a lot actually, but they're not there yet. We know they got there, but you need to see what it's taken to get there and the hurdles of why they are not where they should have been to be able to strangle the market. And that's the problem. FTC, strangle the market, FTC is going to knock them. So this is where we're at. We're leaving you for this series with the following information. Their OS is still available for others to use and put on their hardware. Now, they got the marriage with Nokia. Nokia is still making the devices, but there's a closer relationship now and controlling of the hardware and operating systems. So you should have far fewer issues with those devices as a result. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Hopefully you're learning something if you're following along, and you can kind of see that the vision that was set in 1993, now we're up to right there at 20 years since the vision came out. We're at 2013. We know that Microsoft has not ever deviated from this path. Never. They never stopped doing their thing in this path. They went from Windows Mobile to Windows Phone 7, but that was not a dropping of one and doing something else and having a gap in between. It was continuous development, continuous movement. And we have continuous movement taking us into the next phase. Thanks for watching.